Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us at the Enterprise Lab Startup Scaleup Summit. Hope you're having a good event so far. I'm Steve Parker from Steve Parker ICD International Company Development. You don't need to think about me at the moment. You can find me in the expo area and in the networking area in case we want to connect later. We're here for a fireside chat, so welcome to my fireside. And, if you want to join in, there are some seats at the back if you haven't joined us already. Let's just pretend we're all together in a big room, shall we? I'm delighted to welcome for this fireside chat, subtly titled The Big Mistakes People Make When Starting Up. Thrilled to join us, a serial entrepreneur. Good afternoon, Matt Black.
G'day, mate. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Where are you joining us from if we pretend that you're not in my living room?
So I'm in London, and yes, you'd probably catch I've got an Australian accent. So no, I'm not down under. I'm in the kind of slightly grey kind of London region at the moment. It's all good.
But I've been here clear up any of that confusion so far, just so that people can imagine anyway. So
yeah, I'd love to be in the nice bright sunshine right now, but it's all good.
Okay, welcome along. We're going to have a casual chat for about half an hour. Tell us about you so far. I'm not going to use the journey word. So whiz through your career so far, and then we can get into all this exciting detail you've promised us.
Well, hopefully we have about 2 or 3 minutes left after I tell you my whole journey. But no, just trying to make it really tight. So I was born in the outback of Australia, grew up where, in a country where 9 out of 10 things that'll kill you in under 30 seconds live. And yeah, proper in the bush. Didn't have any shoes on as I ran around till I was 14 years old, just go to school with no shoes on. Left home when I was 14. Started my first business out of necessity, picking up auto parts when I was 17. I sold that business for multi-millions at 19. Went on to start and exit a number of businesses before I was 25. And then between 25 and 29, I built a $250 million telecoms company with satellite telecommunications spin-off company in Australia, becoming one of the largest private-owned companies of its type in Asia Pacific, and had some world firsts in the way we did some stuff. Lost everything, including a marriage and $250 million, 60 odd houses. Everything became penniless just before my 30th birthday. But before I turned 31, I was in Silicon Valley and I was a multimillionaire again. And from there, I gave up a lot of my time for free with the Boy Scouts of America, trying to make a bit more impact on the world, not necessarily concentrating on making rich people richer. Went on to move to London, and I've been here for about 15 years now. I spun up a few little businesses of my own, and it seemed like to me, every time I did it, they got faster and faster and faster. And for example, I think I'm on number 10 now. This business is number 10. And number 9, or actually number 8, I launched a video company and I sold it within 3 months. And the next one I did it's in the sports sector, and I co-founded a business and we got that to multi-million. And I exited that business after 6 weeks. And so, yeah, it seemed like everything was going faster and faster for me. So hitting multi-million dollar valuations and exiting in such a short time is pretty astounding for most people. And so it took me 32 years in business now to kind of get this skill set. And then just lately, I've been doing it as a business. So all I do now is work with companies that are extraordinary. And it's an absolute pleasure. And everything I do is impact-based. So it's all about making the world a better place. So it's a real great journey so far.
I think one of the great things about the summit has been it's given people an insight into the mind of an entrepreneur, and we've had all these different variations on it. So you were running around with no shoes on for a large part of your life. I don't suppose for a minute you ever dreamed of the career you were going to have in those days, did you? It was just a case of survival in the first place, wasn't it?
Yeah. So my first business was just let me clarify. I'm not a very smart person. So I got like a D in English, and my son discovered my kind of old school records, and he was quite shocked that I got like an A in math. That's it. And of course, in my business, if anybody knows me, the last thing I do, I do lots of spreadsheets, I do lots of predictions and stuff like that. But the last thing I do is like accounting or anything. I totally hate it. I have an accountant and everything for that. So
you don't have a big calculator on your desk.
Sorry?
You don't have a big calculator by your desk then?
No. So the only thing what I'm saying is the only thing I'm good at is the thing I don't do. So it's quite amazing. So, but having a D in math didn't stop me from writing a book. That got a few people reading it, and having no qualifications at all. Really, I have like an associate diploma in graphic design. For God's sake, that's pretty much all I've got. But didn't stop me being a multimillionaire and then losing my money and retiring twice in my lifetime so far. That the whole thing, like becoming a multimillionaire and retiring and then losing it and becoming a multimillionaire and retiring, again and again. So, it's really interesting. And I think it's quite a heartening story for people that feel like, well, maybe I don't have a degree and maybe I don't have everything that a classic entrepreneur has. When I speak I spoke not just before COVID at Imperial College of London, and these are all PhDs, and these people have like done the long haul, right? PhDs have done a lot of education, and I felt kind of slightly bad at telling them about some of my story because they feel, some of them feel like, oh God, I wish I'd not. I wish I had not spent like most of my parents' money and 10 years of my life trying to get to PhD status. But everybody's on their own journey, and for me, I've always felt like I wasn't a good fit for being an employee. In fact, I'm a terrible, terrible employee. And the time I kind of volunteered with the Boy Scouts of America, I was officially an employee. Though I donated all of my salary back, and they clearly understood the relationship there. I was pretty much there to just be part of the journey. You can't kind of get involved unless you're within the structure. You can't sit outside the structure. You have to go inside the structure. And I said to him up front, do not manage me. If you manage me, I'll just quit, because I can't take orders. I'm a terrible, terrible person. I've been a CEO since I was 17. Tell me what you want done and I'll organize it. It's not a problem. Just tell me what you want done and I'll get it done. And so maybe it's people like that are in the world that are just a terrible employee and people get down on them and you can't keep a job down, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe entrepreneurism is what you need to try as an alternative.
Yeah, you've touched up on something there that many of us who run our own companies for a while have soon realised that once you've started, you don't want to be employed ever again, do you? Because although it can be really tough at times, it's you really like the freedom and exuberance about it. And one other thing before you start giving us some real tips and part of the psychology aspect, when I read, and you've just confirmed it, that you had a company that did $248 million at one time. To those of us who are unlikely to ever see that kind of money, what does it feel like, and what does it look like when you're making or you're turning over 248 million?
When you've got multiple millions coming into your bank account, on a like weekly, even more often basis, it's a pretty incredible feeling. Now, I have to say that if I had to share anything with entrepreneurs, because I've had the question before, because when I've done public speaking, sometimes people ask me, what's your one top tip? My one thing that I would say, only because you asked me about this particular thing, is that at the time when I was doing that business, I was about the money. And the money was really important, and I measured myself based on the success, and my success based on money. And right now, looking backwards, I wish I would never have done that. I think that what I've done since, I'm so much more proud of. So what I've made since, and the amount of money I've made over the many years is eclipsed that, and the impact that I've done with other people and things that I've done. Like just one contract I did as a consultant generated billions in revenue for a large company. So it's just not about money, guys and girls that might be watching this. To be honest, if you concentrate on value, if you concentrate on working in a business that you love, and concentrate on working on a business that delivers an incredible amount of value to other people, and you yourself love the business, if you're doing the business for money, it's going to be hard work. I look back at those times thinking how much pressure there was, how much hard work there was. And I'll be honest, hand on heart, and say, I would rather earn a quarter of that and have an amazing life than earn that money again and have that life, because it's not something I'd never go back to.
So does it feel the same if you lose $248 million as if you lose a smaller amount with a company that you really care for, or is losing 248 just something that you can recover from mentally fairly quickly?
Well, it's tough. It's tough losing a big business, and for me, it wasn't the money that I lost that was the important thing that hit me hard. It was because my emotion, my family, which sometimes gets lost in the entrepreneurial journey. Sometimes people think about the success or failure of business, but it's wrapped up in your life. You know, your girlfriend, your wife, your children, whatever it is. If you're happy to be married, lucky enough to be married, and have kids. Or it might be, and for me, another really, really important thing was at the time I had to let go 65 staff, and it's their lives that I see, that I feel tangibly, and my friends that have helped me get to where I wanted to go. And I think that is probably the biggest disappointment. And as a CEO of many companies over, and I work with lots of CEOs, I really emphasize to them that if they, for example, engage with me, I emphasize these kind of lessons to them, these kind of lessons that, you know, they know when I'm behind them and standing behind them. And I hope you find someone to stand behind you and support you, like a good advisory team or something to work with as well, is that they should be understanding you holistically. You know, thinking about the whole life cycle, thinking about all of your company and your team within your company, and making sure that everybody's looked after and everybody's rowing the boat. Because when my first business did really well, it was mostly because the environment was really, really good. This is back in the days when mobile phones went from like bag size to like reasonable size, and the first Motorola flips came out, and then the market exploded. I think a trained monkey could have made millions of dollars back then, and I would probably put myself in the same category. I don't think the business was very good. I was just really lucky, and I was prodigiously unlucky to lose the business. It wasn't my fault. It was again the environment. So the environment gave it to me, and the environment took it away. But the bottom line is, I wish I would have had better engagement from my staff. I wish I had better engagement from my team, and I wish they would have been doing the business because they wanted to do the business, rather than they're waiting for that paycheck at the end of the week or the end of the month. And that's another big lesson. I think that your company it is part of your life, and you should make it such that it is part of your life. I think that's a big thing. And a lot of people that start off, and I suppose this is a neat segue into kind of what kind of big mistakes people make, is chasing the company for the wrong reasons, or doing a company for the wrong reasons. I think I have been an entrepreneur because it fits me as a person, and I think I've been an entrepreneur because I really can't be told what to do, and I want to do stuff on my own, succeed or fail. It doesn't matter to me. And there's been times in my life that I spent a year, 2 years, 3 years doing basically nothing, being basically unemployed and unemployable. But, you know, just recently is a good example. I don't want to brag or anything, but my current company has gone from nothing to, like, you know, I think its current valuation might be heading towards 25 million in like 4 months. So, you know, how many people make 25 million potentially in 4 months? I mean, this is just like our current valuation. We're obviously on our way to a much higher valuation, but securing millions and millions of pounds of equity and growing at exponential rate is something that you can't do outside of being an entrepreneur. You can't. There's just nothing. There's like a fraction of a microscopic number of percentage of people in the world outside of the world. I mean, the only people are corrupt on politicians, potentially. Poo-poo, sorry if you're a politician. I'm sure they're all good. Not. If you're a president of the United States, that's obviously a very lucrative job. These types of people, you know, a CEO of major corporations, but they are so tiny, the amount of people that achieve that. Yet, entrepreneurism offers a 17-year-old kid with the right idea and the right support the ability to make more money than a top CEO in months. Not a career of building your skill set, but a great idea and a great team can make a significant impact in the world and make lots of money at the same time. And for me, I put them in that order: a significant impact and then make money, because money always comes to people who are doing the right thing.
But for years, as you touched on earlier in this conversation, the message seemed to be it was all about making money rather than making the impact. And I agree, society appears to have been changing now to show that it is about the impact you make rather than the money, because that comes and goes. So resilience is obviously an entrepreneurial trait, a never give up kind of thing. You must have learnt lots from every company that you've been involved in, really.
Yeah. So after I made my money in Silicon Valley, I mean, all my life I've done mentoring, right? So I've mentored Aboriginal Australians when I was 17, 18, who are artists who wanted to sell their work on what was back in the day bulletin boards and things like that. It's ridiculously how old I am. It's not even funny. For the people that are listening, it's like, oh my God, how what's a bulletin board? What's a telephone that you dial? You know what I mean? So, but the world's moved along, and back in the 80s, it was all about the money. It was all about money. The 80s, and that's why the .com did what it did. But nowadays, there's been a whole social shift there's a whole, global shift to environmentalism and social, equality and equality of the sexes and equality in so many other ways. And I think it's a really great time that we live in, a really great time. And I'm really proud of the fact that I learned my lessons fairly early, and since then have done what I feel like is kind of my bit to kind of educate and support young entrepreneurs. When I was in America and the back end of when I was in Australia, because my first business has been Australia, and then my subsequent business has been Silicon Valley. I was in 7 years in Silicon Valley, and I mentored thousands of founders. I lost count. I thought I tried to go back at one point and work out how many I did. It was definitely over 2,500, 3,000. And I've seen every single industry, but there's so many commonalities. The best things, this is what when I lectured at Greenwich University, and when I did a talk at Microsoft, it was all about value. Being driven by value is a really key thing here. Driven by the value you deliver from a customer. And I think it's probably another tip that I could add in, just because it pops in my mind here as well. If you're talking about a rookie mistake that people make, mistakes that people make are that they create something that's novel, but not necessarily valuable. Now, I give you credit that there is plenty of businesses out there that have made, and plenty of people that made a lot of money out of something that's novel, like an umbrella in a glass type of idea. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's cute, it doesn't really do anything, and the market is flooded with little bits of plastic that are kind of cute for a moment, and toys that are cute for a moment, and ideas that are cute for a moment, software that's cute for a moment, that doesn't really provide tangible value. But it's only good quality solutions that have real value to people, and they can be really simple, that are worth investing your time and money and effort into. You might get investment, you might make a couple of bucks, but the chances are you won't. Do you know what I mean? The chances are you won't do that. And I think I've said before, I've sat around for sometimes years without doing anything. And that was not because I couldn't start a business, but because I wouldn't start a business. I wouldn't start a business unless I had an idea that had what I like to call gravity, that kind of sucked people towards it, that was so cool that people were like, oh my God, Matt, I have to be involved with this. Tell me more about this. Tell me about how I can help you, or can I give you money? Can I work on this project with you? When people start saying things like that, that's when I know there's something there. When there's like user traction, like I'm not even advertising and people are coming to ask to buy the product, that's when I know that there's gravity, that there's something worth pursuing there. And I just won't do anything, and I just won't work with someone unless they have something that is going to go somewhere, that's going to have its own life, that's going to drag people in, have people want to be involved, have people want to buy it, fix a genuine problem. And otherwise, I just won't do it, because it's no longer acceptable to be average. You could probably get away with being average 10 years ago. In Silicon Valley, I was there when checks were being handed out, classic in an elevator, where the idea of elevator pitch comes from, where you'd be in an elevator with an investor, and from the top of the floor to the bottom of the floor, he'd cut you a check. Here's $100,000 and off you go. Let's see what happens. Those days are gone. It's hard work. You have to have something genuine. You can't just depend on other people to give you money for no reason. Though it might still feel that way. There's still stories out there of big money getting exchanged. I tell you what, there's a lot behind those ideas, probably far more than you think. And I think that's a real classic mistake, is just doing something because it's in front of you. Just that idea that you love might not be the idea that's worth doing. Or even worse news for you, you might not be the founder to do that idea. And that's harder pill to swallow. And that's unfortunately something I have to tell people, is that yes, this idea is possible, but you haven't got the gravitas. It's the wrong time. You haven't got enough resources to be able to get there. There's something else broken. It's tough being an entrepreneur. It really, really is a tough journey. If you can get the right mix then you're on. But if you haven't, I mean, be brutal with yourself, I think is the lesson. Be brutal to say, well, I haven't got the skills. But the great ideas, of course, you know that there's lots of great people out there. You know, my greatest successes are because of other people, not me. My business that succeeds right now, it's doing extraordinarily well, probably the fastest growing company I've ever had, is doing really well, not because of me, but because of the founders that I work with, the team that I work with, the partners I work with. And I think that's a really great lesson.
And is part of the mindset as well. I think some people, particularly if you're starting up your first company, you think, right, I'm setting this up and it's going to be where I am for life. But maybe it's to get into the mentality that you think, I'm going to give it a really good go for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and then I'm automatically going to exit. And that's sometimes the right thing to do as well, rather than think, hey, I'm going to be doing this for the next 30 years or something.
Well, you know, this is my 10th business, so I'm already doing my 11th, and I'll tell you another rookie mistake before I go any further. Don't do 2 businesses at once, kids. Do not do it. It's really hard. But I'm the CEO of one company. I'm a co-founder of another, but they are so closely aligned, and all of us are like very, very high level, sophisticated professionals, and we have sophisticated investors behind us. So we're able to do that balancing act. But I would never advise doing 2, even though I say I'm doing 2 right now. But so don't do it. Trust me, do not do it.
Don't do it, folks.
Very recently seen one of my clients go bust, and I advised him over and over not to do it, and his company went bust. He tried to do like 4 different ideas at once. It was impossible. But the idea is that don't split your time up. Be focused. Be focused on what you do. Understand that there's great team members out there for you to grab and bring on board. Okay, that's what I'm getting to.
Yeah. I think, as I say, we're going to get a lot of good information on that. So, how long do you think? We've only got a few minutes left, although I thought we got a lot longer.
I can't believe it's gone so fast.
It's a sign of a good conversation when it whizzes by. How many more businesses do you think you'll start up, and when are you planning to retire?
Yeah, so actually, I got half through my conversation. I forgot your point, so I'll admit that up front. So, is this a business forever? Sorry. How many more businesses? Well, I swore like an Australian, only an Australian can swore. Like a year ago, I would never start another one, and that was on number 9, and now I'm not on number 10, but number 11. So I honestly, I think I've transitioned from being a CEO now to being more an advisor. I think that this might be the last company that I build, because I think my passion, my love, my excitement is in the building process, the kind of configuring, reconfiguring, tweaking a business, pivoting it and sending it towards like something amazing. That's the bit I love. And that's what I think has driven me to start so many businesses. But within the context of what I'm doing right now, with what Key Stage Ventures is doing, that's all we do. We work with hypergrowth businesses, and my next business is a challenger bank, the world's first startup bank, and we will be doing that en masse, millions of businesses, and sending them in the right direction with funding and support. And I think that helps me, my soul, to be satisfied that I love to do that. Do you know what I mean? So I think that kind of, it's a little bit of a circle around here now in the conversations I kind of said earlier on, which is build your business that kind of fits you and your personality, and build a business that is really something that's going to bring value. And for me, I think it's taken me 30 years to do it, but I think that I'm in a good place for me personally, what I want to do. And the byproduct of that is millions of pounds. But for me, it's just a great byproduct, because, you know, I've been lucky enough to have success in the past. But I would hope that founders that have listened to this have kind of found some seeds of wisdom for themselves there. This is not something where I'm going to tell you the intricacies of how to pivot or how to create a disruptive business or how to do all this kind of stuff. There's plenty of speakers that are going to talk about that stuff, and I can talk about it ad nauseum. But I think that if you're going to learn anything from a long-term serial entrepreneur that's been across 3 continents, thousands and thousands of founders, and seen dot-com booms, busts, depressions, and a whole lot of it, there's nothing better for you to do and to focus on as an entrepreneur than something that's an incredible business that excites you and has gravity and excites others, to find something that speaks to you and you can commit to. But to go back to your question, don't expect it to be a lifetime. In fact, investors want to get in, they want to get out. You should have the same philosophy. I think that the idea is to find something that's going to answer your needs now. And if you need to sell and get out of it, it's a business. It's a vehicle to get where you want to go. And you might jump into that. Some of you might have been lucky enough to have multiple cars in your life. I've just recently got myself a brand new one. It's pretty sexy. And I enjoy it while I've got it, but eventually it'll kind of get old and I'll move on to a new model. I hope that I'm not going to get sick of this current business anytime soon, but I don't have the expectation I'm going to have it forever. I really, really don't. It's a vehicle to get me where I want to go and do what I want to do until such time as I think of something better, or the world falls out from underneath me and the market or my stupidity or the investors or whoever takes it away from me, that's fine. And then at that point, I'll move on and I'll build something else. But I think you did say something about resilience right at the beginning. I think the resilience of understanding that you can be in love with a business and committed to a business, but not attached to a business. I think that's the strength that has me go through successes or failures or successes, because the thing that I'm absolutely attached to is my commitment of being an entrepreneur and my love of doing what I do.
Matt, we've been getting signs, as you can tell, that we've got to wrap up. For me, thanks ever so much on behalf of everybody who's been listening into this. I found it a fascinating insight into a serial entrepreneur, and I'm sure everyone is going to be following your career now as well to see what you're up to next. And when the next big things happen, we'll probably be thinking, I wonder if Matt Black's behind that somewhere.
I'm looking forward to having some, my career is ending, but the career of some of my people I work with is only just beginning. And that's what excites me now.
What a big thrill. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning into this Enterprise Lab Startup Scale-Up fireside conversation. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as me. I've been Steve Parker of Steve Parker ICD. You can find me in the exhibit and on the bio. You can definitely find more about our special guest for today, Matt Black, his bio and his career, and let's all follow him, shall we? Matt, thanks ever so much for your time this afternoon.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you.